As California restricts water use for farmers, low supply levels add to droughts. Harsh reality. California's re-emerging drought is placing unprecedented strain on the state's intricate water system, threatening mass agricultural production and basic drinking water in a way experts say is more severe than in years past. Federal officials on August 16 declared a first-ever water shortage from the Colorado River, which supplies drinking and irrigation water to a number of western states like Colorado, Nevada, Arizona, and California, after water levels from the Lake Mead Reservoir fell to record lows.
In California, officials are turning their attention to the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta, a massive water system that is fed by dozens of rivers that helps move water from the north of the state to the south and provides water to two-thirds of the state's population. The challenge facing regulators during the worsening drought is how to get people to use less water. All of California is under a drought condition, causing water levels to drop dangerously low for farming and residential use. The problem is only worsening by heat waves and a lack of snowmelt that would typically help sustain the state's rivers and reservoirs, officials say. Water use from farmers and communities is exceeding the delta's supply. Some reservoirs that feed it have dropped to historic low storage levels, with one dropping to as little as 13%.
The state has directed households and businesses to cut water use by 15% during the drought emergency. Governor Gavin Newsom has signaled mandatory water restrictions could be coming sometime in September, depending on the forecast for both the drought and the anticipated rainy season that begins in October. By whether voluntary or mandatory, there are questions about whether water restriction orders would do enough, after decades of major water overuse and a dwindling supply.
The only way to become sustainable is to lower the water demand until it matches supply, David Sayers, a Fresno County citrus farmer, said. But nobody wants to do it because it will hurt their economy. Well, the economy is the same thing. You can't have infinite growth on the economy on a resource that is finite. That resource is water. In August, the California State Water Resources Control Board approved an emergency regulation to limit how much water can be taken out of rivers and canals that feed the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta, which helps transport water in much of the state. It's one of several measures leaders hope can help them avoid the worst-case scenarios of being unable to deliver crucial drinking and irrigation water if the major water source runs dry, a likelihood made more possible by climate change. An aerial view of the Sacramento-San Joaquin River Delta is seen near Rio Vista, California. Picture taken September 3, 2013. Reuters/Robert Galbraith. The state's effort to maintain certain water levels in the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta is also an effort to wash away ocean salt that is washing into the delta in Northern California. The lack of water statewide makes it much more important to find the pressure needed to wash away the salt, which could harm the quality of the water used for agriculture and domestic use, according to officials. Over the years, the state has also seen a slowly sinking ground as groundwater levels, primarily in the San Joaquin Valley, fall lower from irrigation and well operations, a process called subsidence that happens when too much water is sucked out of the ground and isn't replaced. Water experts say if too much water is taken out of the ground, the volume of water that can be held in the future decreases. Less water storage underground means less water that can be used overall. Combined with less surface water, this has meant less water is available to farms and communities during peak irrigation periods. Unlike previous drought periods, officials say more people will feel the effects of drought this time around. In one of the more extreme scenarios, up to 10,000 users who are legally entitled to pull water for beneficial purposes in the state could be affected by the water cutoffs from the state's rivers and canals. The board sent first notices August 20 to approximately 4,500 water rights holders, instructing them to stop diverting water from rivers and canals. The Water Resources Board hired 15 additional staff who will act as enforcers of the water curtailments, responding to complaints and issuing notices to illegal water diverters during this period in an incremental enforcement process. Anyone taking water from streams for their own use during a curtailment order can face fines of up to $5,000 per day, according to the State Water Board. Water curtailments were considered in the last significant drought the state experienced in 2014 to 2015, which even garnered a visit from then-President Barack Obama, but they didn't materialize. State officials expected this would be a dry year, though by the spring, the outlook became much worse, said Diane Riddle, Assistant Deputy Director for the Division of Water Rights at the State Water Board. Little rainfall coupled with heat waves, combined with wildfire burn scars in mountain regions have been evaporating chunks of the state's Sierra Nevada snowpack, she said. Riddle said that created a roughly 800,000 acre-foot deficit in expected water runoff from the Sierra Nevada that is contributing to diminished surface water coming down. This drought is worse in terms of its intensity, Riddle told the NewsHour. The reservoir storage levels are in worse condition. In recent decades, water demand has only increased in cities up and down the state, requiring more water use from the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta, ground, and other surface sources. The state hasn't necessarily granted new rights to water, but those with existing water rights have found ways to maximize water use. Some farmers, facing revenue losses, have resorted to permanent crops, such as almonds, that can turn a bigger profit but also require more water to be pumped from the ground. With looming regulations of surface water, many will continue to look underground to the prized but fast-depleting water sources. Some cities and farmers are racing to recharge aquifers, giant water storage pools underground, as much as they can year-round, not only to have some water for the future, but also to meet state regulations to preserve groundwater. In 2014, legislators approved the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, which fully goes into effect in 2040. Until then, the legislation calls for the creation of sustainable groundwater agencies in roughly 140 different groundwater basins in the state that are tasked with bringing the basins up to sustainable levels. One result of the law will be a reduction of farmland.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe